It happened at 2:34 a.m. Gulf Standard Time. The crew of the USS, the ship name is still being withheld from public release, was at modified watch condition, not full battle stations, not the relaxed posture of a vessel far from threat. The modified condition that experienced sailors recognize as something could happen tonight. Something happened. The first warning came from the Aegis radar system, a contact, fast, low, coming from the direction of the Iranian coast, not a commercial vessel, not a Gulf State patrol boat. The signature, the specific combination of speed, altitude, and radar cross-section, matched one profile in the threat library, IRGC anti-ship missile. The close-in weapon system activated automatically. The phalanx cannon, 20mm rounds at 4,500 per minute, engaged the incoming threat. The missile got through, not fully, not intact. The phalanx degraded it, deflected it, changed its terminal trajectory enough that instead of hitting the main hull at waterline, the hit that the missile's designers intended, it struck a superstructure section above the waterline. Fire, damage, casualties. American sailors wounded on an American warship in international waters in the Persian Gulf. The Battle Watch captain at U.S. Central Command received the damage report at 2:41 a.m., 7 minutes after impact. The response authorization was transmitted at 2:43 a.m., 2 minutes from damage report to response authorization. 2 minutes. And what happened in the following 94 minutes was not measured, not calibrated, not the kind of proportional response that previous American administrations sent back to Iran after similar provocations. It was designed to hurt, specifically, comprehensively, instantly. Here's what Iran hit. Here's what America hit back. Here's what burned. Here's what's gone. And here's why the next 48 hours determine whether this is the opening exchange of something much larger or the moment Iran finally understood what crossing this line actually costs. Stay with me. Let's establish the sequence precisely because the sequence reveals the decision chain on both sides. And the decision chain tells you more than the event itself. The missile that hit the American warship was not fired spontaneously, not by a rogue IRGC boat commander who made an independent decision in the dark. Anti-ship missile launches of this type from fixed coastal batteries on the Iranian shore require authorization from a command level significantly above the firing unit. Someone in Tehran, in the IRGC command structure, at a level that connects to the senior leadership, authorized the launch. That authorization was given, the missile fired, and when it struck an American warship, it crossed a threshold that every American military commander in the region had been briefed on before they left port. The briefing used specific language. If American blood is shed on American naval vessels by Iranian action in the Gulf, the response will not be measured against the individual incident. It will be measured against the accumulated pattern of Iranian behavior and the standing response options that have been pre-planned, pre-targeted, and pre-authorized for exactly this scenario. Those pre-planned, pre-targeted, pre-authorized response options were sitting in a targeting system, waiting. At 2:43 a.m., they stopped waiting. Before we go to the response, before we describe what burned and what collapsed and what disappeared from Iranian military capability in the 94 minutes that followed, let's talk about the people. Because this story is being told as a military and strategic event, and it is both of those things. But first, it is a story about sailors, American sailors, young men and women who enlisted, who went through training, who deployed to the Gulf knowing the risk and deploying anyway, who were at their stations at 2:34 a.m. doing their jobs. The missile impact on the superstructure section produced fire, structural damage to the affected compartments, and casualties. The number of wounded American personnel has not been officially released as of this reporting. The Pentagon has confirmed casualties exist, has confirmed they are receiving medical treatment, has not confirmed the severity breakdown. What has been confirmed through multiple sourcing channels is that the wounded include personnel from the combat systems team, the sailors operating the very defensive systems that partially defeated the incoming missile. They did their jobs. The system worked as designed. The missile was degraded. It still got through. That fact, that Iran's anti-ship missile partially defeated American point defense on an American guided missile warship, is a data point that naval engineers and electronic warfare specialists are working through right now with the urgency of people who understand what it means for every future engagement. The wounded sailors are being cared for. The ship is still operational, damaged but not sunk, not combat ineffective. And the men and women of that crew who watched the response unfold on their battle management screens in the 94 minutes after impact understand something that no press release will capture. America hit back for them immediately, overwhelmingly. Let's talk about what happened in those 94 minutes. The response architecture wasn't built in 94 minutes. It was built over months of planning, targeting, intelligence collection, and pre-authorization. The 94 minutes was the execution time. The targeting package activated against Iran fell into three simultaneous categories. Category 1, the launch site. The coastal missile battery that fired the anti-ship missile was a fixed installation on the Iranian coast. It had been mapped, its radar systems were known, its launcher positions were known, its command post was known, its power infrastructure was known. Within the first 30 minutes of the response authorization, Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer in the Gulf of Oman were already in flight toward that installation. The Tomahawk travels at approximately 550 miles per hour, terrain following, GPS guided, with a terminal accuracy measured in meters. The coastal missile battery, the specific installation that fired the round that hit an American ship, ceased to exist as a functional military asset at 3:49 a.m. Not damaged, ceased to exist. Category 2. IRGC naval infrastructure in the Strait of Hormuz. The fast boat bases, the fuel storage, the radar installations, the patrol boat staging areas, the specific forward operating positions that give the IRGC Navy its ability to threaten shipping and project force into the shipping lanes. F-18s and F-35s launching from carrier decks in the Gulf simultaneously with the Tomahawk launch. Precision, munitions, standoff weapons that never required American aircraft to penetrate Iranian territorial airspace. 7 distinct IRGC naval installations struck across a 40-minute window. 7. Category 3. The command infrastructure, the communications nodes, the radar coordination centers, the command posts from which the IRGC's straight operations are directed, not the senior leadership, not the Supreme Leader's office. The operational layer, the specific command infrastructure that connects Tehran's strategic decisions to the gunboats and the missile batteries that execute them. That operational layer was targeted specifically to create a gap between strategic intent and operational capability. Iran can still decide to threaten the strait. After tonight, it has significantly less ability to execute that decision. Let's be specific about the damage assessment because specificity is the difference between a story and a strategy. The coastal missile battery that fired the anti-ship round destroyed radar system, launcher positions, ammunition storage, and command post, all assessed as combat ineffective. The installation that threatened American warships in the Gulf tonight will not threaten them again. Abu Musa Island forward operating positions struck. The radar installation that has been serving as the IRGC's primary surveillance and targeting platform for the Eastern Strait, the installation that provides targeting data for both the fast boats and the missile batteries, assessed as severely damaged. Radar coverage in the Eastern Strait has been reduced to a fraction of its previous capability. Bandar Abbas IRGC Naval Base, fuel storage destroyed. The forward fuel depot that keeps IRGC fast boats operational for extended patrols. The logistics infrastructure that makes sustained harassment operations in the shipping lanes possible. Burning. IRGC fast boat staging area at Larak Island struck. Multiple vessels assessed as destroyed or damaged at the staging position. The launching point for the swarm operations that have been the IRGC Navy's primary harassment tool degraded. 2 IRGC communications relay stations destroyed. The nodes that connect the coastal missile batteries to their targeting data feed, gone. Future missile launches from the Iranian coast will be operating with a significantly degraded picture of what's in the water they're shooting at. 1 IRGC Command and Coordination Center struck. The facility that was assessed as the operational nerve center for strait harassment operations. Its status is being assessed, but initial damage indicators are significant. Total physical assets destroyed or severely damaged in 94 minutes, more than in any single previous American response to Iranian provocation in the history of this conflict. The message is not subtle. Iran's military response in the hours following the American strike tells you more about the current state of IRGC capability than any Iranian government statement. Silence. Not the aggressive counter-declaration that Iran's military has produced in every previous exchange. Not the announcement of retaliatory operations. Not the activation of proxy networks. Not the missile force posturing that Iran deploys when it wants to signal escalation readiness. Silence. For 4 hours after the American strikes concluded, Iranian military communications monitored by American signals intelligence platforms that are extremely good at this specific task showed the signature of an institution trying to assess what just happened, rather than an institution prepared to respond to it. That assessment process is itself a military indicator. When a military command needs 4 or more hours to assess damage and formulate a response to a strike on its own infrastructure, it means the strike disrupted the command system enough that normal assessment processes cannot function at normal speed. The communications nodes that were destroyed weren't peripheral. They were the arteries of the IRGC's operational nervous system, and cutting arteries slows everything that depends on them. Iranian state media's initial response was to report explosions in the vicinity of military installations and attribute them to technical causes. Technical causes. American Tomahawk missiles and precision air-launched munitions are not technical causes, but Iranian state media using that framing in the immediate aftermath tells you that the regime is buying time, deciding how to frame what happened for domestic and international consumption before committing to a narrative that might constrain its subsequent options. A regime that knows exactly what it wants to do next doesn't need to buy time. The President of the United States posted on Truth Social at 5:17 a.m. Eastern Time. The post was not long. Trump's most consequential. Communications rarely are. The substance? Iran attacked an American warship. American sailors were wounded. The United States responded immediately and decisively. The response was proportional to the threat Iran represents, not to the individual incident. Then the warning. If Iran conducts any further military action against American vessels, personnel, or allies in the region, the next response will not target military infrastructure. It will target energy infrastructure, the oil fields, the refineries, the export terminals, the economic foundation of the Iranian state. Trump didn't use the word warning. He used the phrase, the next step. The next step in Trump's communication style, particularly in the context of this conflict, the next step is not aspirational language. It is operational language. It describes what has already been decided, not what is being considered. The targeting packages for Iranian energy infrastructure have existed for months. They've been updated as the intelligence picture of those facilities has been refined by American ISR collection throughout this standoff. Trump just told Iran those packages are authorized for execution if Iran fires again. And then he said something that nobody in his previous public statements on Iran had said quite this directly. He said the American sailors who were wounded tonight will receive the best medical care available, and that every Iranian official responsible for the decision to fire on an American warship should understand that their decision has consequences that extend beyond the military response already delivered. That last phrase, personal accountability applied to specific Iranian officials, is a different kind of threat than infrastructure targeting. Now here's the piece that changes everything about how tonight's events need to be understood. Iran's nuclear clock was at 12 days before tonight. The breakout timeline, the estimated period to produce enough weapons-grade uranium for one nuclear device, has been running down throughout this standoff, throughout the ceasefire that Iran broke, throughout the infrastructure strikes that followed, throughout tonight. The centrifuges haven't stopped. The enrichment hasn't paused. And here's the strategic connection that American planners are working through right now in real time. Iran's decision to fire an anti-ship missile at an American warship, a decision that required authorization at a senior IRGC level, may have been made specifically to test the American response threshold, not to escalate to full war. To test, to find out how America responds to direct kinetic action against its naval forces. The data Iran collected from tonight's American response, the speed, the target selection, the weapon types, the scope of the retaliation, feeds directly into Iran's calculation about whether to sprint to the nuclear threshold before the military confrontation it can now see approaching. If the American response was limited, if the retaliation was surgical and contained, Iran might calculate it has time to reach the threshold before the full strike option is executed. If the American response was comprehensive enough to signal genuine willingness to escalate far beyond what Iran can absorb, the calculation runs differently. The 94-minute response was designed with that calculation in mind, not just to punish the launch, to inform Iran's nuclear decision. 7 installations in 94 minutes is not a measured proportional response. It's a demonstration of what comprehensive looks like. And the implicit message is, the nuclear timeline is shorter than you think. Not because of what we did tonight, because of what we're prepared to do before you cross the threshold. Let's talk about what happened to American force posture in the Gulf in the hours following the strike. Because force posture changes are the military's way of communicating in a language that words cannot fully capture. Both carrier strike groups, which had been maintaining operating positions calibrated for deterrence and presence, shifted. Not away from the strait, toward it. The carrier groups closed, reduced their distance from Iranian territory, moved into positions from which their full air-wing strike range covers every target on the expanded target list. That repositioning was not in response to Iranian counteraction. Iran hasn't counteracted yet. The repositioning was anticipatory, positioning for the scenario where Iran decides tonight's American response justifies escalation rather than deterrence. In that scenario, if Iran fires again at any American asset anywhere in the region, the carriers are already in position. The F-35s on the flight decks are already loaded. The Tomahawks in the vertical launch cells are already targeted. The pre-delegation of authority that American commanders in theater received after the ceasefire break, the authority to respond to Iranian action without waiting for White House authorization on individual engagements, that authority is still in effect. It was not rescinded after tonight's response. It was, according to multiple sourcing channels, extended in scope. American commanders in the Gulf right now have broader authority to respond to Iranian military action than they have had at any previous point in this standoff. That expansion of pre-delegated authority is the military's equivalent of loading a weapon and taking off the safety. Everything is ready. The decision to use it has already been made. The only variable is whether Iran provides the trigger. Let's think through this from inside Tehran. Because Iran is making decisions right now, real decisions, under real pressure, with real constraints. And understanding Iran's actual options, not its rhetorical options, its actual military options, is essential to understanding where this goes. Option 1, full retaliation. Ballistic missiles against American carriers or Gulf state infrastructure. Proxy activation across the region. Hezbollah, Houthis, Iraqi militias, all operational simultaneously. Straight closure attempt. The problem, the American response tonight demonstrated that the U.S. has been collecting the targeting data and pre-positioning the response options for exactly this scenario. Full Iranian retaliation triggers the energy infrastructure strikes that Trump just described as the next step. Iran's energy infrastructure sustains the Iranian state. Without it, the regime's ability to fund the military, the IRGC, the proxy, networks, the social programs that maintain population acquiescence, collapses. Full retaliation triggers the strike that ends Iran's economic foundation. Option 2, limited proxy response. Activate 1 or 2 proxy networks at a level that imposes cost without triggering American energy infrastructure strikes. The problem, the pre-delegation of authority that American commanders now hold means individual proxy actions don't require White House decision time. They get responded to at the commander level immediately. Every proxy escalation risks triggering the response that the expanded pre-delegation enables. Option 3, absorb tonight's strikes. Return to the negotiating track. Use the Islamabad framework or a new back channel to signal willingness to de-escalate. This is the option the Iranian Foreign Ministry wants. This is also the option that the IRGC hardliners view as surrender. The internal argument between those two positions playing out in Tehran right now is the most important military variable in the next 48 hours. And it's happening inside a regime that just had 7 of its military installations destroyed in 94 minutes. Let's talk about what the world's financial markets did when the news hit Asian trading hours, because the energy market is the real-time gauge of how seriously the world is taking what just happened. Brent crude opened up $18 per barrel in the first 45 minutes of Asian trading. $18, not the gradual creep that reflects elevated geopolitical risk assessment. The sharp, immediate spike that reflects a market calculating that the scenario it's been pricing as a tail risk just became the base case. An American warship hit by an Iranian missile. 7 Iranian military installations destroyed in 94 minutes. Trump warning of energy infrastructure strikes. Both carrier groups closing toward Iranian territory.